Oh dear, back again. I put the whiteboard behind just as a matter of decluttering, making it easier to focus on what's in front. Now, there was some irritation that this wasn't a balance. I think we can see that it's a very good balance, actually. If the weights weren't hung beneath the pivot point, it would not oscillate with the rotation through the lever, through the centre. We've done that in the past, haven't we? It would come to a rest in whatever position the friction took hold. But I wanted something that would oscillate. Yes, you could have the lever beneath the pivot point, but this is what I had set up, and it was good enough to explain the point I wanted to make, which was very unfortunate that Gary didn't get to. Anyway, the reason I'm going over this again is he says that this is his main debunk of kinetic energy. This balance. It debunks kinetic energy. Why? I know a lot of you know this, but bear with me. Just wanted to make it clear what he's saying. We want something that moves because the effect is dependent on the movement. One weight, two radius, two weight, one radius. Balance, forces are the same on the lever. That's the lever, or that's the balance, if you like. If we give it a displacement, we move it, and at any point in the movement, we stop it, we freeze it, and let's analyse what's happened. This weight is going twice the velocity of this weight. Dependent on the velocity, whatever speed we give it, that weight's always going twice the velocity of this weight, correct? Now he says that at any point, if we analyse it now, because if kinetic energy was correct and this weight has twice the energy of this weight, why does it balance? Why does it oscillate first and then come to a stop? Why does it balance itself? He says. Why I think this debunks that idea is if we do that again and we freeze frame it, so we've stopped it in its motion, this weight has got a velocity vector pointing top left, and it's pushing the lever northwest, if you like, pushing the lever in a counterclockwise motion. This weight has got a velocity vector southeast, and it's pushing the lever in a counterclockwise direction. They're both working, their energies are both turning the lever in the same direction, aren't they? If it was the other way around, it would be clockwise, clockwise. If it's this direction, it's anti-clockwise, anti-clockwise, and whatever speed. So whatever the division of the energies of the two weights, if you separated them or considered them separately, does not matter because they're working as a whole. Their energies are combined in the same direction, anti-clockwise. There can be no issue where this should do, so if it's got more energy, should do something other than what it does. It's got to do the same, it's got to do what it does in reality, regardless of the kinetic energies of each mass, because they're both, if it's counterclockwise, they're both moving the lever in the same direction. They're working together. Doesn't matter how you separate the weights. Doesn't matter what kinetic energies they have. They're both in unison in regards to the direction of the lever. So the energy you put in is the energy you're going to get out, overcoming friction. Eventually it'll stop and oscillate. Now, I think that's a good debunk of his best evidence against kinetic energy, and it's a shame he didn't play the video. He resorted to a diarrhea of verbal abuse, very unjustified, very nasty. And I think he did that so that he wouldn't have to play the video, because it explains things nicely, doesn't it? Please, if you disagree, put a comment in the... I would like to get some more feedback from anybody, even my viewers, is whether I'm on the right track with explaining this. Bearing in mind that my take on all this is just quoting the mathematics is going to be no good in regards to Gary. He doesn't do mathematics. We've got to try and explain it in kind of picture form, like you would for children, because that's how his mind works. So the concept of why he's wrong now, I think, is explained in this. But there are an even better example, which I'm going to get to now, which is even simpler. I know this is not quite so attractive to look at, but just briefly, he says that if a weight, and this could be this little weight that I'm lifting, or 100 tons in which you'd employ a machine to lift, a crane or something, if that weight is lifted up to this height, and then say it was dropped to do some work, he would agree that that takes an amount of energy which you could quantify. You could work out what that energy was, and everybody would agree. But he then says that to lift the weight to that point, but to then continue to exactly the same distance again, he says it would not take double the work. Somehow the work it takes to lift it to there is not repeated to lift it to there, and so on for however many heights you wanted to lift it. Now, of course, how can you agree with that? How can anybody say, yeah, that makes rational sense? If it takes an amount of work to lift it to there, and then we do the same thing, it's got to take the same amount again to lift it to there, isn't it? Double the work. So I think that is an even simpler debunk of his theory than the balance. But of course, it's not listened to. Dispar's videos are not watched and reviewed now. Michael's are not watched. And as Dispar said, he wanted to defend himself, and I agree. I think we need to start defending ourselves. We may be banging our head against a brick wall, arguing with a toxic personality. Real, nasty piece of work, really. But it's a bigger picture. I am trying to stand up for humanity. He's constantly knocking humanity. And yes, there's a lot of things wrong with humanity. There's a lot of bad in the world. There's a lot of evil in the world, but there is a lot of good as well. And there's a lot of people that'll put their lives on the line for truth, and they've done it down through the ages. Now, I'm not gone that far, but I certainly do want truth, and I'm prepared to work for it. So I think we're sticking up for ourselves, and we're sticking up for the good in humanity by pointing these arguments out. So thanks for the support, guys, and I don't know what to do next, really, because the videos are not even watched now. Just get a verbal tirade of abuse. So I'm not quite sure where I'm going to go, but I thought, well, now keep going, and at least you're doing your best. Thanks anyway.